Hey everybody, welcome to another video review. So, just this month I recently went and watched the Lord of the Rings Extended Edition, Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers and the Return of the King. It was a special showing. I've been thinking about doing a review of my thoughts because the Lord of the Rings is something that I love so much, both the books and the movies. And that will come at a later time, I think. But while I was making room to get out the encounter between the Predator and Arnold Dutch to do that review, I had to take some of these guys out, and I figured if I have them out, I might as well begin to do the review of that. So for those of you who don't know, this is a quarter scale bust of Gandalf the Grey, as played by Ian McKellen, from the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, and it was created by Sideshow Weta. So from the very early days of Sideshow's, I guess growth as a company, they partnered with Weta, the special effects company from New Zealand that Peter Jackson and what's his name? Oh, Richard Taylor. That Peter Jackson and Richard Taylor sort of helped put together, and Weta was the special effects company that created all the special effects for the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy as well. And they partnered with Sideshow with a special deal to create collectibles authorized by the movie actors and sculpted and then sold. So this is the sort of the beginning of that. Very, very old. This is made out of polystone. So how do we start? Let's see. Well, let's start by just taking a look at the bottom. So this is, again, the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, Gandalf the Grey. It's sculpted by the great Jamie Beswick, who is the sculptor from Sideshow Weta Collectibles, as you can see. And there is no limitation. This is how old this piece is. It's so old that it was before it was numbered. Nowadays, of course, it goes without saying, everything's numbered. Even custom collectibles, custom pieces. Everything's numbered because that's important to people. But back then, that wasn't really something that they did. They just made them, and then at a certain point, the molds gave out. They just stopped making them. How many of these guys are out there? We'll never know. They also weren't very expensive. When they were first coming out, these were less than $100. I want to say probably 70, 60. And a few of these now are worth a few hundred, just because, again, of their rarity. So this is all sculpted by hand, nothing digital. This was before digital sculpting. And then, of course, painted by the factories in China. It's a decent weight. I would say about, 8 to 10 pounds. And some of them had great likenesses, and some of them not so much. Again, we have to understand this was the infancy of collectible statues and busts. There was no such thing as digital 3D files or live cast back then. Of course, this scale, 1/4 scale, you have to free sculpt it. So it's all up to just the hand of the sculptor and the skill of the painter. Jamie Beswick, is of course a legend now, but back then he was very young, just starting out. He sculpted some of the best likenesses in the series. I'll have to count. I think I remembered at one point there were like 60 busts. I want to say, including every single bust, there were 60 busts encompassing the entire Lord of the Rings, from Lord of the Fellowship of the Ring to Return of the King. I own all of them. I gave up collecting the 6th scale statues, aside from just a very few select ones, just because number one, they were really hard to get, and then number two, they were taking up too much space. And I wanted sort of this collection that really showcased all the different characters from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and the busts did achieve that. 60 busts, let me tell you, really you get a beautiful slice of all of the characters from the movies. So I decided to do that. So I own all the busts, and I own all the mini helms, and I can go through over time. I'll review all of them, so you have a chance to see them. I don't know how much these have really held their value. I think some of them are still pretty expensive. Others have really dropped from the original value. But I think, again, as a collection of all 60, it's still a very unique and wonderful representation of the characters from Lord of the Rings. And I do wish sort of that they would go back to finish off the line. I mean, there are a couple of holes missing. We don't have a Faramir, which they, I think, rectified in statue form. We don't have a Denethor. And so again, it would be, amazing to sort of fill some of that in as well. But we have some, I'll do the reviews. We have a great variety of orcs. We have Gil-galad, we have Isildur, we have Elendil, characters that were in the movies for maybe seconds, but play such a prominent role in the books. They made mini busts of those. So as far as that goes, still a pretty amazing collection, and pretty proud of that. I'll be happy to show those off. And of course, later on, you can kind of see the evolution. Some of the later busts absolutely did have limitations and numbers. So getting back to, of course, Gandalf the Grey himself. Try to look here. You can see the texturing over here, and then the beautiful detail and the flow of the beard, the hair, of course, his famous hat. This is all polystone. And they had a premium format version of this, which is really, really good as well. I think the likeness is probably a little bit better on the premium format, but the bust has its own charms. And Ian McKellen does look different from different angles, of course, depending on the makeup and how the nose is applied. This is kind of in the dark, but luckily, because it's a bust, I can just lift him up, tilt him up so you can actually get to see, have the light shine on him. So here he is. I think the likeness is there. I think this is a pretty solid version of Ian McKellen as Gandalf the Grey. There's a Gandalf the White that 15 years ago he was selling for $250, $300, almost quadruple the price. That's just a killer Ian McKellen likeness. So Gandalf has fared pretty well in mini bust form, both the gray and the white. I mean, the gray here is a solid, I think, B. Even maybe a B plus, depending on how generous you are. But this is like a solid B in terms of likeness. If I just sort of, if I don't go all the way up to his face, his schnoz like this, right? I just give him some room. Give me some personal space. I'm gonna back up. If you just sort of, take a look at him from a reasonable viewpoint, like this, I think the likeness pops a lot more. And again, it's a beautiful polystone mini bust, and the first of the line I'm going to review. So here he is, Gandalf the Grey, as portrayed by Ian McKellen from Sideshow Weta. Very old. This was released, I think, about the same time as the movie was. So you're looking at an 18-year-old collectible. God, that's scary to say it. I bought this 18 years ago. Which I guess it shows you how old I am now. But I was in medical school back then and I bought it. So I wasn't exactly a teenager when I bought this, and that's 18 years ago. So that's kind of crazy to think about. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed a little blast from the past. I have, I think, 59 more of these to show you. Some good, some not so good. We'll have some fun going through them together. But I think it's a little bit fitting that we started off these reviews with Gandalf the Grey. So there you have it. Until next time, take care.